individually, it was an opportunity to get back to two things that I hold dearly, which are competition and camaraderie. And that's what I get out of being around sports, and to be able to come back and do that here in a new type of role, where I'm using my law degree, but also involved in basketball on a much different level, was something I couldn't pass up, and we're thrilled to be.
Welcome to Waking Up to Life with Rabbi Josh, a podcast built around conversations with members of our community who have found a bit of enlightenment in their life. While you may not find their stories life-changing, I think the conversation reveals how even small moments can change the way we see the world. So it's just an informal conversation, insights from Jewish tradition, and it may just change your life as well. And if not, it's just 18 minutes with me. Today, we welcome Jason Hillman to the show. Jason is currently the basketball chief of staff for the Cleveland Cavaliers, as well as team counsel. And while he grew up here in Detroit, and we had a relationship at the beginning of my career in a wonderfully auspicious way, this moment in your life, Jason, has really changed the way you see your world. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rabbi Josh. It's an honor to be with you. And it's interesting, when we first met, I think about 27 years ago, I was the professional broadcaster. You were the rabbi. We've sort of turned the tables a little bit. I'm not in the rabbinate yet. But you're the one broadcasting, so well done.
I love that. I learned from the best, so it's exciting to have you here.
It's great to be with you.
Spend a few minutes talking about this decision you made to leave your hometown, to start a new adventure in your professional world with a growing family, and really what happened to change the way you see the world.
It was a moment in time for me, frankly, and for us. I had long wanted to marry my broadcasting background, my sports background, with my, at that point, 4-year legal background. And we struck the jackpot. I mean, Dan Gilbert bought the Cavaliers in 2005, and shortly thereafter, I had this opportunity to come down and be general counsel with the Cavs. And for us, it was 2 hours and 45 minutes away from our hometown in Detroit, all that we had ever known, all that my wife Meredith had ever known. But again, it was 2 hours and 45 minutes away. And so we could go start this new life for us. Meredith was newly pregnant with now our 15-and-a-half-year-old Caitlin. And we were still able to sort of spread our wings, but at the same time be close enough to our home. Which is still Detroit, and all the community connections we have there. So it was perfect from that standpoint. And then for me individually, it was an opportunity to get back to two things that I hold dearly, which are competition and camaraderie. And that's what I get out of being around sports, and to be able to come back and do that here in a new type of role, where I'm using my law degree, but also involved in basketball on a much different level, was something I couldn't pass up, and we're thrilled to be here.
So it's 16 years ago. You left home, you uprooted yourself with an adventure that really was a question mark, right? There was no guarantee of anything in the future. And yet it has transformed, I think, not only your life, but your entire family's life as you have grown into this new position. So what is it, if you could identify one or two things, have you learned in the job and in this transitional moment?
I think be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I know that sounds cliche, but you're leaving at that point a 4-year legal practice at Jaffe, which is a prominent law firm in Detroit, as you know, and going to this unknown, which is to be general counsel for a basketball team. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, but yet you're under a microscope a little bit. It's a very much more public facing opportunity. And so the mistakes are more magnified. The triumphs are celebrated certainly differently. So there was a little bit of a fear factor from that standpoint, but we were enthusiastic about coming. My wife was not just coming along and she was going to do. She had a thriving career in Detroit that she has been able to maintain and grow from working out of the remote office, if you will, in Cleveland. So it wasn't just my decision; it was Meredith's as well. And it was probably one of the first joint, really good decisions we made as a couple. And we put our lives together. We've raised our kids here. It's all that we've ever known as parents, is being in Cleveland. And so I think just that fear of the unknown and being comfortable being uncomfortable was one of the big things I learned.
Do you think that has impacted the way you've raised your family, your kids? Do they see the world differently than maybe you did growing up because of that choice?
I think so. We are fortunate in that since they've been born, all they've known is mom's away on a business trip, mom's away on a conference call, mom's got a meeting. And we're both doing these types of lifestyles. And you can have a discussion as to whether or not, one of us should be around a little bit more and paying a little bit more attention than we are. But we think our kids have become incredibly resilient because of the way our lifestyles are. We're always on the go. Wish we were a little bit less on the go, but we've just come through this 2-year span here with COVID, and I would dare say our kids have been more resilient than the adults have been through this. And I think if we're tapping ourselves on the shoulder a little bit, it's because of the way we've been able to raise them here.
I think you're so correct, right? Watching kids who have grown into a little bit of independence because of the way they've been given opportunities in life, it really does shape the way they respond to moments of challenge and moments of adversity, because they have been given the autonomy to make some of those decisions on their own. And yet you have gone from being an attorney for the Cleveland Cavaliers to moving up the corporate ladder and now sitting in this seat of chief of staff. How do you think that has affected? Obviously, your career has been wonderful, but how has that changed the way maybe your kids see the world through your eyes?
It's a fantastic question. I mean, we talked about that, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Someone who I was working for and reporting directly to at the time that I made the transition from the business side to the basketball side sort of famously said to me, you realize you're leaving one of the most secure jobs in the organization to go to one of the least secure jobs in the organization. We all know that people on the front office side in these roles are often hired to be fired, and it's just the nature of our business. I didn't bat an eyelash. This is what I wanted to do. Part of our rebuild, which I knew was going to come at some point. The year that I got here, we still had one more finals run, and we enjoyed the heck out of that in 17-18. So I was totally comfortable, and I think our kids have seen the notion of me finding happiness, despite the fact that we've lost 78% of our games over the last 3 years. I'm very comfortable with the notion of what we're building and being part of that process. I want them to know that. I want them to learn that it's not always going to be going to the finals for 4 straight years. Sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty in order to build this thing back up, and take your lumps while you're doing it publicly, frankly, right? I think they see that, and I think that's money in the bank for them.
It's interesting, the corollary between the way you see that business and the way we see life at Temple Israel. One of the best realities of Temple Israel is this idea that clergy never leave, which means we are given the opportunity to fail. It's okay to fail, because out of failure comes growth and development and new opportunities. And that's exactly what you're talking about with a basketball team. So let's transition a little bit from that personal experience that you had to the basketball experience you had. Talk more about what it has been like to be at the pinnacle of achievement with a world championship. Yep. And then moving to a different level of success or not success. And how do you deal with that as a leader of the team, as a leader of the organization?
I think you have to be invested 100% in the process. And again, I know that sounds cliche, but I think sometimes cliches are cliches because they happen to be true, right? And effective. If it was just about the result, this would be a heck of a lot easier. Going through the rebuild that we've experienced I mean, look, we had, I think, arguably the best player in the history of the game on our team for a long time. That was an ultimate cheat code, right? So you could get away with a lot of things that hid a lot of shortcomings in other areas and things of that nature. But we enjoyed the heck out of those 4 straight runs to the finals, including the first championship in Cleveland history. That's unprecedented. Had an opportunity to be front row for that. And yet, and I hope this doesn't sound sort of Pollyannish, I have strangely enjoyed the last 3 years trying to build this thing back up, more so than the championship, quite frankly. There's something strangely that I gravitate to about the process. And if we can get back to winning championship basketball, having built this up the way we're trying to do now, I would dare say the accomplishment would be and feel sweeter because of the adversity that we've experienced. And that's what draws me to it. That's what I love coming to work every day. I mentioned competition and camaraderie. That I love being around this group. They're family to me. And frankly, we spend more time with this group than I do my own family, just because of the nature of the business. And that's what I love about it. The lesson to me is that process.
It's interesting because I wonder if some of that insight, I'm just thinking as I'm listening to you talk, comes from being a Detroiter, where that workaday grind is part of the culture that this community adopts as our own. I didn't really understand it before I got here, but if you watch the way we deal with losing teams over the course of history, an economy that changes and grows and ebbs and flows, there is something to be said as a Detroiter that you take with you when you walk into a new community, a new place, a new job that I think you're experiencing right now. It's good to build from the ground up and to have that success ultimately attributed to you.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's because people in LA and New York don't work incredibly hard, or Miami, Florida. I think part of it is because there's a source of pride about being in Detroit and cities like Cleveland, where frankly, until you've been there, maybe all you know is what you read nationally or hear on TV. And the people that get to these towns that don't know anything about it tend to then become the ambassadors for it. I mean, I will bore anybody that wants to listen about Cleveland. I'm like the mayor when I start talking about what Cleveland has to offer, right? In fact, I've probably bored you a few times talking about Cleveland. So I think it's that civic pride that we have in Detroit, but I would also go back to what you guys do at Temple Israel. It's dealing with that adversity, right? So how are we going to repurpose high holiday services in light of COVID and turn it into what you turned it into, which was a beautiful opportunity, right? And so whether it's a basketball team or whether it's Temple clergy, or there is a Midwest pride of work, of getting something accomplished that I think is unique to anywhere in our country.
And I think that because I'm the rabbi, I'll add just a nuance from Jewish tradition here. There's a beautiful phrase from Pirkei Avot, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, which means it's really not our job to finish the task, but we are also not allowed to give up, right? You have to continue striving for excellence. That's part of Jewish culture. It's part of the Detroit community. And you, luckily, have brought it also with you to this job in Cleveland. But I have to ask you, it would not be fair for me not to throw you under the bus here a little bit. Tigers or Indians?
If you cut my bloodstream open, you will find the Old English D. I promise that. I was fortunate to go to fantasy camp for my 40th birthday. My wife sent me, and that was every bit of everything you'd imagine. Now, we happen to be friends, very close friends with the people that run the Indians, now Cleveland Guardians, by the way, because the season is over. So that
thank you. I appreciate the correction.
So it's something that I'm friends with those guys, but they also know where my primary allegiance is too.
That's great. I won't do the same thing with Pistons and Cavs. I won't even put you up to that task. It would be too much pressure. So
the paycheck says Cavaliers, so you know where the loyalty is.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So You talked earlier about being open to the opportunity, being accepting where you are and sort of being part of that driving force as you take your family from one stage of life to another, your business from one stage of a life to another. Can you distill all of this conversation down into the most important offering that you can share with somebody else who's making that choice right now in their own life, in their own career?
I would just say you have to be passionate about what you do. And for me, it's not just the work. It's, I counsel young lawyers all the time who think they want to follow a career into sports law because they love sports. It can't just be about that. It has to be about what's unique to sports, right? For us, some of the lessons that we get, some of the lessons of adversity, some of the lessons. I'm a baseball player, I think, as you know, and so what does it say about me that I love a game that is built on failure, right? If you succeed 3 times out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame, and that's something that I've always gravitated to. So some of the lessons from sports become transcendent for the rest of our lives, and that's what sort of I distill is. Take that which you are passionate about. For me, it's that being around sports, and go find something that you have a purpose for. Originally, I thought it was broadcasting for me, right? And then I made a left turn, and then tried to meander back, and that's what I've been able to do. I could have stayed at Jaffe for a long time. I really love those people; they were phenomenal. They still are good friends of mine, and it would have been a good career. But this is what my purpose is, and it's easy to wake up that way.
Yeah, I mean, I started off being a rabbi, and I'm finding I'm pretty passionate about this on-screen business that we're doing.
New gig for you.
And all joking aside, there is something exciting about being passionate about a project and seeing it through to completion. I think there's a lesson to be learned there.
I think you have to be.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
So I was just going to say, my father, I'm a little bit of a nerd of baseball as well. My father used to say, everything you need to learn about life, you can learn between the lines of the baseball diamond. And really what he told me, and it stuck with me ever since those days as a little child at Comiskey Park in Chicago, it really isn't what's happening between the pitcher and the catcher and the batter that is so exciting and interesting. It's what everybody else is doing. Right. And actually in the StatCast era, we're starting to have eyes into what everybody else is doing. And it's pretty powerful, right? What is around the game is almost as important as what's happening in the game.
No doubt. And having that high level of awareness to what those, whether it's baseball or whether it's your work environment, or whether it's being at Temple Israel, that is one of those keys to success too. So, always sort of having the ears and eyes open to what's around you.
Amazing. Amazing. So we're nearing the end of the podcast. I often have asked my guests to share if there is a book or a television show that you have been watching recently in these months of kind of being semi-locked down and now getting back out in the world that has maybe helped you see the world differently or is piqued your interest. Is there something you're reading or watching right now?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's life-changing other than comic relief, but I'm awaiting Curb Your Enthusiasm coming back, and between Succession and Billions, those are my guilty pleasures. In terms of the book, there's a book that I keep rereading over and over, and it's called The Power of Nice. And it's essentially a negotiation strategy book by a gentleman named Ron Shapiro, who was the longtime baseball agent for Cal Ripken, among others, Kirby Puckett, mainly a lot of players out of the Baltimore area. It's a fascinating strategy for how simple it is. It's called The Power of Nice for a reason, right? Which is you don't have to beat the other guy or girl up in order to have a successful negotiation, right? It's sort of this concept of a big win, small W, big W, small W, win-win. And knowing enough about what the other side wants out of a particular negotiation is valuable to you. Let them have it because it will serve you long-term. And that's something I try and live by.
incredibly powerful. It's such an important lesson, especially where we are right now in the United States
Absolutely.
and in the world community. We need to start, this is actually my Rosh Hashanah sermon. We need to start listening again. We need to start
Absolutely.
really hearing and learning.
And we appreciated the baseball reference in that sermon. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been great to have you. I love having you as my friend. I sort of alluded to it early on, but we met in literally the first weeks of my career, and I consider myself lucky to have found you. I'm so proud of you, proud of where you've gone in your career. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. That moment's crystallized for me as well, for good reasons. And I'm grateful for you and everything that you and everybody at Temple Israel do as well. So thank you, my friend.
Phenomenal. Thank you all for watching another episode of Waking Up to Life, 18 Minutes with Rabbi Josh. I hope you found this meeting enlightening, and that you will join us for future episodes as we wake up to life.